Cool. Hi, everybody. Welcome back to our Apollo Weekly Scoot AMA. I'm Chris, joined today by our CTO, Elwa, and our COO, Nadim. And today we're going to be talking about maintenance tips and tricks and answering any questions from the community. So before we jump in, Elwa and Nadim, how are you guys doing?
Fantastic. It's Friday. It's beautiful outside. I'm going to go ride the Pro this weekend, so doing really good.
Nice.
Yeah, no complaints on my end either.
Nice. And with that nice weather, like we said, so really today what we really want to focus on is, again, you're probably taking, if you live in Canada or in places where the temperature is cold during winter, you're probably getting your scooter out and getting it ready for spring and summer. And maintenance is really, really important. I just did my maintenance on my scooter yesterday, just pumping up tires, going through everything. So yeah, today we're going to go through those tips and tricks. And Liam's going to walk you through a lot of it because we have really, really informative maintenance guides on our website. I guess before we jump into it, Nadim, do you want to sort of give a bit of, what resources are out there that we provide to our customers? And if you have a scooter, you're an Apollo owner, where do you go to get a bit of direction on maintenance for your scooters?
Yeah, for sure. So current existing resources, there's quite a few. So we have a lot of repair videos on YouTube. So if you're not subscribed, I guess, to our channel on YouTube, please do so. We release those videos. Actually, we're also expecting to do a bit of a repair video, sort of like dump, as we're working through the certification program for our third-party repair network expansion. So all of those resources will be available to everyone in the community as well. So if you haven't, then please do so. We have a lot of articles on our help desk. So each model has its own maintenance guide with a really, really nice table that shows you how often you should be checking which components. So, every 5 kilometers, every 10 kilometers, 50, 500, 1,000. Obviously, preventative maintenance is really important and making sure that everything is operating the way that it should. There is step-by-step guides on our chat assistant on the site that you can definitely check out as well. If you start going through the troubleshooting flows or the maintenance flows, you'll see that there are some really good resources there too. And the manuals are also on the site, and the manuals have a lot of really, really good, useful, important information on how to safely operate your scooter. So those are on the help desk as well. Please check those out. And then obviously, with anyone who is buying a new scooter, they're getting the latest and greatest manuals. So for customers who might have an older scooter, they might not have that information in their manual, but it is available on the website. So we try to make the digital copy available to everyone. So those are some of the resources that we have today.
Cool. Thank you. And that's it. I guess even when jumping into this, I think that the biggest thing when you live in a cold area, if you are coming back from winter, for me personally, and we can go through this afterwards, like what is your biggest sort of maintenance priority? And I'm curious to hear what yours is as well. Number one is always battery, I think, because battery is, and correct me if I'm wrong, during winter, you must always leave your scooter in somewhere with a room temperature. The battery must be at 77 or 80% is ideal. Never leave your battery at 0 and leave it in garage or anything. Your battery won't wake up the next year. And then you're going to contact your supplier and be like, oh, my battery is defective. That is part of the maintenance that you're required to do as a customer. So super, super important with lithium-ion batteries. And that is, I think, the biggest one. What do you remember any of those that, any other recommendations for people, I guess, just starting off with that scooter maintenance, most importantly?
For sure, the battery, for me, it's also number one because it's the most expensive part of the scooter. And yet they say between 60 and 70, 75% is the ideal range where the battery is going to be stable. And you want to keep it between 0 to 25 degrees, the ideal range of temperature. So if in your garage it's going into the minus degrees, don't leave it there. Or, for me, I just remove the battery at the start of the winter, put it in one of my closet upstairs. So at least I don't have to bring the whole scooter up. I think now it's a lot more intuitive than before. Before you just had bar on the display, so it was it's at 2-3 bars, so that should be good enough. Now at least you can connect to the app and see the actual battery level. And the interesting things we can do for the new Pro, for example, having the smart BMS and the IoT, we can send you notification when you reach that critical level of battery to say hey, like you should add 10% to it because now it's at 50% or things like that. And another thing that I saw quite a lot is people that they're gonna store their scooter anywhere, like on the garage, in the garage, whatever, but the tire pressure is low, and it's gonna continue deflating during winter. And when they want to inflate it again, well, because it was for 2 or 3 months on the flat ground, the tire is all deformed. So after that, yeah, like wobbling in the tire, it's not ideal. So maybe just check your tire pressure as well.
Yeah, no, that's great. And again, what we'll do is we'll send some reports here. There's some really good resources all on our website. I know there's a lot of info, but it really breaks it down. Like we have a chart that literally says every 5 kilometers in every ride what you need to do on the maintenance side. One for every 50 kilometers, 500 kilometers, and 1,000 kilometers. And that's really important. So like everything from, and we can walk through it now, but essentially like check your tire pressure is really, really important. All of the PSI is on our website. Lights, I mean, we could also go through different scenarios. What happens if you over pump or under pump your tire? Well, what will happen to your experience? I guess
it's under pumping, over pumping it. It depends the type of tire, I guess. Yeah, if you have inner tubes in it, like your old lineup, over pumping it, you're gonna get a flat tire pretty rapidly. And same thing for under pumping it. When you talk about tubeless tires, like everything we have in our new lineup, it's the same thing as a car that if you overinflate it, the middle of the tires is going to be like rounded. So you're going to use just the middle of the tire instead of the whole surface of the tire. And having a wide tire like the City, that's going to be even more true because it's really going to form a balloon on it. If you under pump it, it's going to be the opposite. It's going to like cave in, and you're only going to wear the outside of the tire. So if you really want the like optimal traction, you really need to make sure it's written on the tire too. If you're not sure and you don't have access to internet or whatever, like just check on the tire and it's gonna tell you there.
That's one of the best investments you can do is literally buy a pump that has a tire pressure check. Because like I've seen cases, we've seen every case, but I've seen cases of people bring it to like a gas station without a thing and just like overinflating and the tire exploding. Like
yeah, or they have at the gas station they have the middle thing coming out when you put the pressure and you're trying to see like so yeah, get the digital one. It's a good investment for sure. And just like for people to know, in our new toolkits that's going to be offered with all the new scooters, we offer a pump and a valve extender as well. There's no pressure gauge because it literally couldn't fit in the kit with everything we packed in, but at least you have a pump, so if you see that it's soft, well, you can give it a little bit and continue your ride.
Yeah, great points. So going on to next, which is brakes. So this is ensuring all your brakes are fully functional, are properly adjusted, lubricated brake cables, and changing the brake pads. I remember doing like when we went with some different cases, like what do you use to clean the brake disc, and can you use WD-40 or grease to clean the disc brakes?
Yeah, no, you don't want to use any of those. What's gonna happen basically? You don't want to use any grease on your brake. Period. That's it. When you talk about like WD-40, which is like a water repellent, you can clean your disc brake with it. That's fine. Like with a clean towel, you clean your disc. But the problem is that your brake pads are like little sponge and they're going to absorb all the WD-40. And then your brake pads are basically scrap. And as soon as you have a little bit, like it's done, and you're going to hear it. It's going to squeal and everything. So what you want to do is, let's say you have a disc brake. You want to remove your brake pads, clean your disc properly. And there's also proper cleaner on Amazon that you can find to do this. Or you can just buy brake cleaner. It's literally called like this. And for your brake pad, I will also recommend using brake cleaner, and you want to like put them on a clean towel and use a little brush and just spray it and brush it to really clean all the water out of it and the impurity. That's pretty much it. After that, you install them, tie them, like make sure they're good to go. A thing that people often do is that they're going to clean it, put it back, and they can say, I'm going to adjust them later. And you like take your scooter, you forget about it, and then get into a crash. And for the drum brake, you just tie them and you basically have nothing to do with it. Like I think we recommend every 500 kilometers, you should check them. So if you're at 500 or 1,000, maybe just open your wheel and check. But that's why we're going with drum brake, is the maintenance on it is very easy and minimal.
And that's another really, really important investment that I didn't think of before getting a scooter was like proper tools. I think if you get cheap tools, the cheaper they are, the more likely they are to scrap. And if you have cheap tools, they're going to scrap your bolts. And trust me, if one of your bolts on a motor hub or a battery hub gets scrapped, you're going to have a very bad time. So again, we always recommend just spend that little bit of investment, get proper tools. It makes your life so easy. Don't try and cut corners when it comes to expensive items, and take care of your stuff. It's really important. But coming back to brakes as well, I mean, the whole point, like Elwar mentioned, reality is, on bikes and motorcycles, disc brakes are great because they're much higher off the ground. Scooters are really close to the ground. So when you have disc brakes, there's a lot of dirt that goes onto the disc. And then that's why you need a lot of maintenance for hydraulic or disc brakes that are open up. And that's why all our new lineup has drum brakes, because it's enclosed inside, which means there's much less maintenance needed. Still needs maintenance, and you still need to check your disc, but that's one of the main reasons why we moved away from disc brakes. Because lots of people don't understand, or don't really understand why we see thousands and thousands and thousands of scooters in our repair centers. And one of those is the biggest pain point. So that's what we're really trying to do. So next after is suspension. How can you maintain suspension, Elwar? If you want to go through a little bit of this.
I would again, it depends on the suspension you have. On all the new models with the spring upside down, like the City, the Ghost, the Phantom, just hose it down. Then I would make sure to, if you're gonna store it for the winter, make sure it's dry. Don't just leave it in the garage all wet. There's gonna be corrosion. But you want to hose it down, remove all the dirt. And if you have a plunger inside your suspension, like you have on the City, so like there's a metal rod that guides the suspension. You have it on the City, the Phantom, on all the models except the Ghost. You also want to lubricate this. Again, like a lithium-based lubricant. Here in Canada, we have Jigaloo. In the US, there's a ton of there. Even WD-40 make a lithium grease lubricant. You just need to look out for this specific mention, and you want to grease the plunger inside. So when it's going to go in and out, it's going to be smooth and it won't squeak. And something I always do is the pivot point of the suspension. So it's going up and down, but it's linked at the top arm and the suspension arm. And this point where it's pivoting, you want to lubricate them as well, because it's going to start squeaking. And you have a stainless steel shaft going into an aluminum arm, so you want some lubrication there, because it's going to corrode if there's nothing.
Yeah, and we see a lot of cases like this on Reddit. Guys, if you're using your scooter on ice or snow roads, on like Montreal, for example, the amount of salt that gets put on these roads, and salt is a corrosion material, and it hits your deck, and if you don't wipe that, your whole deck will be completely destroyed the next day, next few weeks or months type of thing. And also with the suspension springs, we see a lot of people riding in the rain and in water. Always wipe it down afterwards. It's gonna squeak otherwise. And maintenance is literally so important for your scooter. So again, I see a lot of people being like, "Oh, my scooter's squeaking," and it's like, "What do you do?" It's like, "I've been riding in the rain for the last 2 weeks." It's like, "Yeah, okay, well, you need to wipe it down." So it's really important. Just to answer a quick question. Sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, I think one of the things that's really important is getting in the habit of doing a series of checks before you jump on your scooter. And these checks are not things that are going to take you any longer than a few seconds, really. You just want to check some of the most vital components to make sure that everything's operating the way that it should. Like, these are very complicated machines. They are also machines. They're metal. They have components, mechanical components that interact with one another, that are subject to the environment. And if you're not doing some of those checks, then you are increasing the risk that something pretty serious can happen. And I would see it almost like you're doing a little bit of an investment in the product that you've purchased. Like, those few seconds that you're spending before you ride every time are going to save you hundreds of dollars later. And so it's really worth it. So maybe what we'll do is as we go through the list, we'll kind of package it in a way where these are the types of things you should be checking basically before you jump on your scooter almost every time. These are some things that maybe you want to check, every month, every 6 months, and then maybe every year or something like that based on your usage. So maybe we'll get there in a sec, but yeah, we can answer a few questions in the meantime.
Yeah, no, that's great. And again, like Nadine said, scooters, they get a lot of vibrations during their ride, and vibrations is what makes things rattle and become loose. And that's why all our screws come with Loctite. But if you're doing maintenance and you take off that screw, make sure you reapply Loctite as well when you put it back in, etc. So all these small things are really important for your safety. So that's why it's everywhere, right, on our website in our user manuals. Just a quick question from Jazz: where can I purchase drum brakes replacements for City Pro? It's on the website. Just put in City Pro drum brakes. It's $19, and those can get taken off for that. Quick question from Justin: I've seen silicone lubricant sprays recommended by others for the suspension as well as the wheel bearings. Is there a reason why lithium grease is recommended over silicone lubricants? I'll let you.
One of them, the silicone is when it's interacting with rubber, there's like a chemical reaction. Something happened that sometimes the rubber literally melt. So that's why they say that lithium don't have that chemical reaction, and you're safer with this. And then you also have like you have the same thing like grease or like liquid lubricant, literally. In the bearing, you want very the lubricant because the grease is too thick. It won't go through the seal. All the bearings are sealed, obviously. While for the suspension, you want something that's going to stay there a little bit even when it moves, not like oil that's all going to drip. So then you're probably better with grease. But in both terms, I wouldn't recommend. I would recommend lithium over silicone.
Cool. And Mooncake, I'm waiting for repair parts. Yeah, like we mentioned last week, unfortunately, we switched platform internally. There's been a few delays in terms of parts and scooters. Our team's working really, really hard on it. We sincerely apologize. It'll get there very quickly. We're sorry. We're looking into it, and as of next week, everything should be back on track. So thanks for your patience on this. Okay, so going on to next, I mean, battery, there's not much more you can really check on battery health, LY, except for the app and the voltage.
So the new screen, we have a new version of the app for the Pro, for all the new models. And it was released this week, actually. It's working pretty well, but it's the same idea as like your iPhone battery screen. So now you see like the total capacity not in voltage, like really the capacity, the amp hour of the battery. You can see the degradation, what is the health of your battery. You can see the temperature now. So it's giving you, I think, 9 data points. So that's going to be pretty helpful for battery diagnostic. For all the other customers that don't have a smart BMS, we're going to be releasing the same version of that screen, but simplified with the data point we have. So it's going to be much easier than looking at the voltage and like remembering that, okay, when it's full, it's 58.8 volt. Like we're going to tell you the degradation based on voltage. But this whole process is going to be made a lot easier, but through the app.
Perfect. So we also have a list of questions that were submitted before. So we're going to go through those as well. Is there anything else quickly on the maintenance side that you guys wanted to touch on? I mean, I would just, again, give a recap of really make sure that, again, you're going into a season, you're going to be riding a lot, check all your screws, apply Loctite everywhere, make sure you're taking care of your scooter and the battery. Anything else you guys can think of for the safety of our riders?
For sure. I would just say a couple things are also important to make sure that everything is tight and excuse me, that nothing is loose. Like when things are loose, that's generally where, you might be running into issues with things not working the way that they should. We need to ensure that, or everyone should ensure that those connections are always tight. So things like your handlebar, your direction bolts, any screws under your deck, any bolts on the motors or headset screws. We talked a bit about the locking mechanism, the holding mechanism. Those are things that are really, really important to ensure that are tight at all times. But yeah, just quickly to kind of recap, like what are some of the things you should check almost every ride and then moving forward? So obviously tire pressure, that your brakes are working, that your lights are working, and that your locking mechanism and sort of like your handlebar is solid and tight and nothing is loose. Those are things you should be doing on every ride. Before you are hitting speed, you want to make sure that you have stable control over the scooter. Then maybe on like a 50-kilometer basis, you want to do a little bit of a closer check on your brakes. Make sure your suspension is working properly, that everything is aligned and tightened the way that it should. Retention in your locking mechanism, that's like one of the most critical components in the scooter. Make sure that your main direction nut is not getting loose. And then you want to make sure, obviously, your wheels are properly secured and your headset is probably fastened as well. So that's maybe a bit more from like the stem perspective, making sure that the stem is tight and secured. 500 kilometers is where you start getting into areas where you want to do some more, I guess, maybe removing a component, lubricating it and putting it back. So lubricating your brake cables or brake pads or changing those, greasing your suspension pin, making sure that, again, any of the bolts that you have are secured and properly torqued. And then for the 1,000 kilometers, I think whereas you get into potentially like need to replace some components. So like changing your tire, it's probably a good idea to do that every so often, or doing a full inspection on the full inspection of the suspension to make sure that there is no wear and tear there. So I would say that those are some of the checks that you should be doing based on the different kilometers, and those are all available in our guide. And if you're not sure or don't know how to do any of this stuff, we have maintenance packages that are geared around these for our riders at all of our servicing centers. So you can walk on in to a servicing center, tell them, hey, I need to do a maintenance check or a tune-up, and they'll do that for you, make sure everything is perfect. I mean, similar to, a bike. When you start to ride your bike for the beginning of the season, it's probably a good idea to do a tune-up. With your scooter, it's even more important to do that. So please take advantage of those services as well.
Yeah, that's really good. And maybe like my routine when I start like the ride, like I'll share it so I start by always like pressing on the tire to make sure like there's proper air in it. After that, if the screws of your tires are loose, and then I'm talking for every ride, not every like 500 or 200 kilometers. If they are loose, you're gonna be able to twist them with your hand. So you just check all of them quickly, like are they still like tight? They're not moving. Then I go up the stem to check your direction bolt. Obviously, we don't want you to remove the stem and everything. Like the trick to check if your direction bolt is loose is you put your fingers. There's two gaps on the stem. The first one, the crack is where it's folding with the folding mechanism, and the one under it is where the bearing is. So you start by putting your fingers on that gap and you shake the stem. If it's loose, this means your direction is loose. If you go up and put it on where the folding mechanism operate on that crack and it's loose, then your folding mechanism is loose. Then I go up, press the brake handle to make sure it's tight, and then I'm ready to go. So those components are like, if the wheel fell, you can die. It's pretty dangerous. If like the folding mechanism fold on you, you can imagine going at 50 and folding on you, and same thing with the brake. So those like 4 components are the one that you need to check every ride, and it takes like a minute and a half to check all of those. When you have the trick of like just checking quickly if it's loose or not.
Cool. Thanks, guys. Okay, so some of the questions that we received before. Can we get some details about the CEO and CTO visit to the factory in China, about the start of the assembly of the Pro? I don't know if you want to give us a brief.
Yeah. I went today to get my visa passport for China. Actually, we got approved, so I'm good for the next 4 years, I think. So yeah, pretty excited about it. We have our whole itinerary built. So we're gonna spend the whole time at our factory basically, and it's happening at the same time as the production of the City and the Pro. So we're gonna be able to supervise both production, which it's fantastic. We're gonna be probably making the V6 walkthrough of the Pro on the floor in China. I think it could be just so cool, and the V6 is gonna be the beta units basically. And yeah, everything is ready on our side. The SOP, so all the assembly instruction are already made. All the QCs is also like the QC checklist that we have is ready. The IoT antenna, which was one of the big blocker, it's working, it's ready, it's integrated. So we just need to get there, make sure that we train the staff properly on all the little details that was missed when we launch a city, for example. A lot of things were loose after just a couple of hundreds of kilometers. So we want to be sure that the attention to details is put at the right place. And the factory learned from the other assembly, but it's from the city. But it's just now we just need to put the emphasis. And if something is not clear enough, in the SOP, we gonna print it bigger, have an employee dedicated to those critical steps. But yeah, we're gonna record the whole thing. We're gonna have someone with camera following us the whole trip. So you're gonna be able to see everything that we do.
Amazing. Excited. That's gonna be some really, really cool content. Okay, so the last few ones. Is Apollo gonna eventually open up Apollo Pro beta program to those outside the service hubs? Nadim, any?
So look, maybe. We've been getting a lot of people messaging us about having access to the Pro. I think one of the reasons why we originally decided that we wanted to limit it to areas where we have servicing locations was for the serviceability. We want to make sure that if something goes wrong with the scooter, if something doesn't work, that you're able to get that scooter back up and running as quickly as possible, so that you could continue to hit the miles that you need to hit, so that we can make sure that we're collecting all the feedback and that the program is working the way that it's intended to. And the Pro is very expensive to ship back and forth because of its size and weight. So we'll see how the Alpha kind of way it works. We have like an original set of users, and then there's like a secondary phase. If everything goes really, really well in the alpha, we might open it up to some people, and maybe we'll open it up to some of the people who have been supporting us from the beginning, give them a little bit of an early treat or early Christmas present in the middle of the summer. So we'll see. So for now, I would say no, but maybe.
Cool. Yeah. And again, the main purpose of it is it's not that we don't want to. We just want to make sure we're able to service and help you if anything happens, right? So our priority with this is it's a beta program, and it's really to make sure that the units are perfect. So worst case, these will be available for delivery in October if all goes to plan. So that's when the final units will come out. So a few other ones here as well. Is there any danger of overcharging the battery? If you want to charge it overnight, it could be sitting for a while. Is that okay?
Yes, it's okay. You have a BMS. The charger also have a security built in. So yes, you can leave it charged for a week if you want, and it's going to be fine. Ideally, unplug it when you see it's full, just like to be safe, I guess. But yeah, there's so much like built-in thing in those BMS and chargers that yes, it's 100% fine.
But we do recommend to like not charge it for more than 24 hours or something, right?
Yeah, you might just unplug it when it's full, but don't stress that you need to come home early because like it's gonna stay charged while full for like 2 hours. It's fine.
Perfect. Next one here is, when can we purchase Extend from Johnny? I think that would be in Canada. Probably asking Nadim.
Yeah, if you're in the US, you can already. You should have received an email. If not, reach out. We can get you a link to add it to your cart if you're in the US. If you're in Canada, the contract between us and the provider, it's unlikely that it's going to be extended in Canada. It's in my email inbox, so I'm working through it to make sure that we have the contract is good to go, doing any revisions. So I guess maybe just a quick note on the issue in Canada. It's a little bit out of our hands. It is a question of the regulations in Canada are very different than the regulations in the US, especially for insurance products. And the providers need to get the approval and certifications from the Canadian government in order to offer these. So write your representatives and tell them to expedite this process for us. But until then, so I can't really commit to a date, unfortunately, but we're doing whatever we can to make sure that this is available as quickly as possible.
Perfect. So John, I see you're from New York, so that either write to our team, or you can check our website, and that should be available to you as well. Okay, so we have 2 more minutes, so I'm going to power through these. Does your team rent out scooters for a weekend? I'm trying to get my friend into the Polar City Pro, but she doesn't feel like spending $2,000. We don't do rentals, but we do test drives. So if you go onto our website, you can now test drive any scooter, and that's the best way to experience it. And I guarantee once your friend tries the City, she's going to fall in love with it, like all of our test drives. So that's available on our website. We'd address the phantom charging. Just running through this. Is it normal for battery carriage on the City Pro to have a slight bulge on the side? It doesn't sit flush on the back top right.
Send picture to support and we're gonna check.
Yeah, just to be sure. Similar to the previous one for the City Pro upgrade kit, when you install it, will the data from the odometer and settings get transferred to your new unit, or would everything get reset? It's a good question.
So the Bluetooth and the brain of the scooter, like it's called the master and the slave. The master is the display, and the slave is the controller. So yes, everything will be erased, the odometer, your settings, everything, and you'll have to add it as a new scooter, which I think it's fine. It's like you do it one time, and it's going to take you like 5 minutes. It's not that big of a deal. And setting is acceleration, top speed. That's pretty much it. The thing that is annoying though is odometer. Like you did like 1,000 kilometers on your scooter, and now it's going to reset to 0. I don't like it. And the reason is simple: we cannot override the odometer of a scooter even from our backend. So what I think I'm going to try to do is save all the odometer that we have for those model, and even if the display is going to show you your new odometer with the new headset, at least the app will do the sum of the old one plus the new one, and you will see the total mileage there. And it's quite important for us as well. We want to see how much mileage you put on your scooter. So yeah, we are working on it. But as of now, if you were to do this tomorrow morning, it would be erased everything. So yeah.
Cool. And then a last question before we jump off from Jazira. Have any beta testers already been accepted? Is a beta testing program active? So the beta testing program, I mean, the application is still open, and it's currently going in. So we still have availability, and I don't think we're going to close it, and I mean, until the deliveries arrive. Nadim, right? Correct?
Yeah, no, I don't think so. If you have any questions about the beta program, call our sales line. They'll be able to help you answer. They'll be able to answer any questions that you have. Just call the number on the site, and we'll help you out.
Yeah, and Steve, when should we expect to receive our beta batch? So again, Eloi and Mac are going to the production line this month to go through all of it. So everything will be updated there. They'll show you the scooters. They'll share all the dates, all the timelines, and everything else. And you're going to get like a real insight into the unit. So thank you for your patience on this. It's going to be really exciting, and it's going to be a beautiful scooter. So great, guys. Well, thank you so much for tuning in today on this Friday for the maintenance guides. Please submit all your questions. Leave a like, follow the channel. And if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to us. Please, the biggest takeaway from this is spring season's coming. It's really, really fun, but prioritize your safety. Make sure you spend that 5-10 minutes on your scooter. Check every single bolt, check every single tire pressure, everything. If you have any questions, write to our team. Like Nadim said, we have maintenance packages. If you don't want to do it yourself, we're happy to do it for you. And just please ride safe. You know, it's a really exciting time, and we want to make sure you're taking care of all the sides as well.
Yeah.
So
and on our end, we're going to do everything we can to make those resources and materials available to you. Make sure that you have access to that information. It's a responsibility we don't take lightly, obviously, when it comes to the safety of our riders. So that's a commitment that you have from us. And then I guess in return, we just ask that you do the work necessary to make sure that you're riding as safely as possible as well. So yeah.
And also, if you guys are not part of the Facebook group, I see a lot of beautiful cases in which people are like, "Oh, I need help changing a tire," and someone's like, "Oh, I live just next door, I can come and help." And like, ask the community. The community is here, and they're really, really kind and here to help. If our team can't help, which I'm sure they will. But yeah, anyway, Eloi and Nadim, thank you. Have a lovely weekend, and to everyone, ride safe, and we'll see you next week.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye.
Oh.